started working on the film, it was also the time where a lot of Syrian people were fleeing to Europe. And I wanted to look at a conflict that is a bit more advanced, or where this migration was more common for a while. And along the lines of Mexico and the United States, I know this has been going on for decades, so much so that people have already made this own simulation of it. And I thought it was a bit meta, that you don't only experience this maybe trauma of migration, but you already make like interactive tourist experience out of it. And it was like looking into the future a bit, but also in general, I think what made me really passionate about telling it was the attitude of empowerment in this story, that it wasn't the typical story of victimization that we see a lot in cinema and literature, how migration is framed a lot, but yeah, people who take their own story and make something bigger out of it. I think it's really interesting because in a way everybody has their own experience and people can feel very lonely, especially living through hard things. And this process of making a collective script to make an experience of something they all experienced is something I think that also helps seeing that it's something very universal. And it's not, I didn't want to make a film necessarily about Mexico and the United States, but the Mediterranean, like all the other borders, the external borders of Europe. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a very sensitive subject, and I feel like it can happen that filmmakers come to a place and they impose their own stories or what they want to hear. And at first, I was also astonished at some point that people don't think about their migration so much anymore. They most of them cross the border, but it's not urgent in their everyday lives. Like, they don't need to tell it emotionally to a TV camera or to a cinema camera. It's not something they are preoccupied with. So I really try to capture scenes with them that are showing their experience and what it means to be in that situation that they're in, be it doing language courses to be closer to your family that left, or this quinceañera, for example, where the people are separated, but they try to celebrate with their family in the United States by dressing up really nicely and having a video connection. And the internet doesn't really work, but like sort of to find images and scenes and develop them with them together that can capture their experience that is meaningful to them as well. One of the worst moments, I think, for us was that we, like Rebecca's mother left, but we didn't really know what was happening with her. And I think that's also why it was so sensitive to shoot all the time, to be there for Rebecca and shoot her and not, balance being there for her and shooting her and making it possible and ethical, and also in the verge, like in our friendship, in our relationship. And there was this point where she had left for a week and we didn't hear from her yet. And I was reading this book by Jason de Leon called Land of the Open Graves, and he's an anthropologist who's done a lot of research in the desert, and he founded that woman and that migrant woman in the desert, and then followed up on her story and went to Puerto Rico to her family to find out the story. And so I was reading this book at night, and at some point I thought, we haven't heard from her for a week. Like, you know, she might as well have died, or maybe something really bad happened to her, and we don't know. And to balance this, and then the next day they heard that she was in prison, and they were all super sad about it. But I was so relieved because I think I held this other possibilities as well. And I think what I took from this book a lot was also that Jason de Leon, this author, an anthropologist, he says these borders are not coincidences. They look like it's natural disasters because people are dying from the heat or from not drinking water, but it's actually because politically the paths that are easy to migrate are blocked, so they make it that people have to cross through the desert for days and suffer and be tormented and die in really terrible ways, or risk their lives for this because it's man-made, that the borders are the way that they are. And I think that's something that really needs to be taken into account. This is not accidents, it's not people just dying from thirst or from the heat or drowning, but it's actually a man-made situation that has to be changed.